Okay, I think that's everyone. Okay, if everybody's ready. So the main things I wanted to talk about today were our physical, so our PE program. Obviously there's links to well-being and that physical activity aspect. And then introduce to what may be something new to many people is the physical literacy, which we've started a lot with this year in the primary PE. And is just growing throughout from EYFS all the way through to the year 6 PE program. So what I've got is I've just found almost like a bit of an infographic and a video to explain the benefits for your brain, for your learning, and for our well-being from physical activity. It's a couple of minutes long. So if we just want to sit and watch this for a few minutes, hopefully it works.
Everyone knows that movement is good for your body. Your muscles grow bigger, your lungs breathe deeper, and your heart pumps easier. But what about your brain? Scientists have been studying the effects on movement of the mind for decades to answer this question, and have found that physical activity is just as beneficial for your brain as it is for your body. Regular physical activity helps you learn faster and think clearer. It helps maintain good mental health while reducing risk of mental illness. It enhances, improves, and protects your mind. Now, at first that may sound surprising. Instinctively, we assume brains are best when left at rest. But researchers have proven that this instinct is wrong and uncovered reasons why minds need movement. One key discovery has been that physical activity releases a protein in our brains called BDNF. BDNF has been called miracle grow for the brain because it acts like a fertilizer, helping our brain grow, create new cells, and forge new connections. By increasing levels of BDNF, movement allows our brains to blossom. More and more benefits are discovered each day, like improved memory, enhanced focus, faster learning, heightened creativity, better problem-solving ability, and reduced risk of anxiety, depression, dementia, and cognitive decline. Movement isn't just great for our physical health, it's a necessity for our mental health. And just like our bodies need physical activity to grow stronger, our minds need it too. Brought to you by Participaction.
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of that information isn't necessarily new information. If you're active yourselves, you'll know that that has those positive benefits on your well-being by reducing stress, anxiety, and just being that sort of freedom away from your laptops. And especially at the moment where we are very home-based learning and we are very much glued to our laptops, whether that's yourself or your children. A lot of the children are on their laptops or on a screen a lot more. So now more than ever, that physical activity is really, really important for well-being. It's also, as discussed in that video, there's a protein, that BDNF, which this is sort of relatively new research over the last probably 4 or 5 years that scientists have found that this protein enhances our children's capacity and adults to learn, to pay attention, and to retain knowledge. And it's become a lot more beneficial, or they've done a lot of tests to see how beneficial that is on children's learning. And it's had some really, really positive outcomes. I'm sure this isn't new information, and it'll shock you, maybe it won't, but from the UK, they've done a lot of data from the active, like children and active young people, and what would normally be 44% of young people being active has, what would normally be 46.8% of young people that are active has actually decreased in the last year, or from 2019 to 2020, down to 44.9%. And it's quite scary, really, that we're in that same situation now for many, many countries. And obviously here in Singapore, lots of children are not getting their PE lessons even in school, and some maybe are not as active at home, where activities or sports clubs can't actually go ahead due to restrictions at the moment. So it's a stat that maybe needs to be kept at the forefront, that hopefully will gradually start to increase as things open up and as parents and schools find different ways to keep them active. Just looking at, going back to this one, sorry, there's a lot of research by a scientist called Dr. John Ratty. He's got a book, actually, I wrote it down on my notes. It's called How Exercise Will Improve the Performance of Your Brain. I've been doing a lot of reading on this as well lately. It's really, really interesting. It's a book I would highly recommend if it's something you're interested in finding out more about. And what Dr. John Ratty did was a case study in America at a school called Naperville High School. So it was with high school children, but they have trialed it with younger children as well. And what they trialed was they had one class that did their PE lesson or some physical activity before they took part in their literacy lessons. They monitored their heart rates and they kept their heart rates quite high, so about 160 to 190 beats per minute. So it's an aerobic, like a running or a cycling or a swimming sort of activity. And they did that consistently over a few months, monitoring their results within their literacy lessons. And what they found was, compared to a class that had a lie-in, came to school a little bit later, and then did that same literacy lesson, they found that there was a 17% increase in reading and comprehension from the group or the class that exercised before taking part in literacy, compared to a 10.7% improvement to those that maybe didn't exercise and came in after having a bit more of a lie-in. So the sort of results, and that's just one example, but the results and the case studies really show that physical activity, yes, for your well-being and yes, for stress or anxiety, is incredibly important. But for learning, actually, there's lots of new data that is really, really positively aiming towards that exercising before studying on a regular occasion has had really positive outcomes on learning, on creativity, on retention of knowledge. From that particular book, they recommended around 20 or 30 minutes exercise first thing in the morning before going to school, before going to work, and then obviously completing the studies or the lessons from there. So if it's something you're interested in, I definitely would recommend that book. And it's really insightful, actually, how much, like, as a percentage, exercise increases learning. So it's definitely something to think about. What I'll do now is I'll talk about how we as a PE team support that learning in their classroom through our physical activity program. So what we've created is a vision to create a lifelong love of sport and fitness, understanding its importance for our health and well-being through providing an inclusive curriculum which is engaging, challenging, and presents appropriate exposure to explore physical activity and sport opportunities. So as a team, both primary and secondary, this is our PE vision, to look at how we can create opportunities for all children to get involved, to feel confident, and to explore a range of physical activities and opportunities. So that's something that we all use within our planning and within our teaching. A big part of that is this introduction of physical literacy. Physical literacy isn't a new concept. It's been around for quite a long time. It's something that Canada are particularly well researched on and have done a lot of work within a lot of their policies and within a lot of their physical education programs and sort of outreach sport programs, looking at that physical literacy and engaging parents to support the PE programs and the physical literacy movement at home. And it fits nicely with our vision, where we're looking at exploring a range of different opportunities, because physical literacy is looking at not specific sports necessarily. It's looking at how children move. Can they move with confidence? And can they then try these in different activities or on different environments? And, you know, are they confident to go out there and try it and move correctly? I've got a bit of a video. This is from Canada, but it's really, really interesting. And most of our curriculum based upon physical literacy is using a lot of the resources that have come from Canada, because they are so far advanced in physical literacy development and their program and their sort of physical activity. So please enjoy. Oops, sorry, there we go. So that's it's actually, I thought that was a really good video, and there are lots of others that also explain what physical literacy is. I think the key message for me from that is us as staff and you as parents being a role model and really engaging in that physical activity with the children and giving those opportunities for them to try new things and learn the key skills, the run, the jump, the hop, the strike of a ball, or whatever it may be, whether it's swimming or cycling. But us as the adults, we are the role models, and setting up opportunities for the children, especially from a young age within the primary school, to engage in that is a really, really important factor in not only supporting our program. Obviously that's a massive benefit from our point of view, but the most important part is it supports your children, and it helps encourage them and teaches them how to live a healthy, active lifestyle. That sort of education part of leading a healthy lifestyle only goes so far within school. And it's something that children either need to have that motivation themselves outside of school to continue by taking part in different clubs or activities, or just independently when they get slightly older, if they want to go for a run or a bike ride, and that's something that's feasible. But when they're younger, definitely that parent engagement is a partnership that that obviously is a really important partnership between ourselves here at Dover Court in the PE team and yourselves as parents. But just looking at the physical literacy, it's that moving with competence and confidence. Okay, can they move in different environments? Can they balance on ice, for example? Can they balance whilst they're on a beam in gymnastics? Can they balance just by catching the ball in the air and landing on 2 feet? It's lots of different scenarios that can be related to specific sports or can be kept quite broad as skills themselves. It's impacting their lives and our lives as those role models and teaching them how to be competent movers to reduce obviously health issues later on in life, but how they move can reduce, help with their growth, obviously develop the bone and muscle strength to help reduce any sort of muscular injuries later on in life. And it's looking at their confidence. Are they confident to just go outside and be active and pick up a ball or pick up a tennis racket or jump into the swimming pool and just try? It doesn't matter if it's not something that they love, but are they confident to just have a go? And that's something us in the PE team at school are really, really working hard on, is looking at how they're moving. So we've got some fundamental movement patterns that we've been introducing in their warm-ups, which I'll share with you in a second. But it's looking at, are they confident to transfer that movement from one activity to the next? And for our older students, maybe year 5 and 6, do they know, or can they make the links between, say, a frog jump and a sport that they may use that action in? So they might need that power to jump high in basketball, for example. So it's linking in those key words, those key movements, and teaching them about a healthy, active lifestyle and those links that cross over between the different activities. I'll share with you in a second. Some of you may have seen this if you have children in year 3 or 4, because we shared this as one of the PE challenges over the last few weeks. So for our younger students from nursery reception up to year 4, we've given different actions. We've given them like animal names. So we've got bear crawls, we've got frog jumps, we've got flamingo hops, we've got can't remember the other one now, so it's gone off the top of my head. It's all in the video. But we've related them to the actions to animals and how those animals move as something that maybe they'll hopefully remember. And we've got to the point now in lessons, which is really fantastic, that we can sort of say, right, everybody, our warm up today, we're going to do our animal movements. And I mean, just going back to one of my reception lessons, I'll say, I'm thinking of an animal. Maybe it's a little bit grizzly, and you know, we can sort of describe them and they know exactly what that animal is and they know how that animal moves because we've used them quite a lot in our lessons. And so what we're starting to do now, even from the younger year groups, is look at how they are used in the different activities or games or gymnastics or even swimming, how they're then using those. I wanted to share with you some of the movements that we've been doing. Like I say, some may have already seen it, so apologies if you've seen it before. Because these are really easy activities or movements that the children can just try at home for 5 minutes, you know, just jumping around, even your living room, your garden, in the park, just to look at how they're moving and their sort of body strength as well. I'm just going to press play, but I'll skip forward a little bit. So these are some of our key movements. This doesn't have to be done as a circuit, so like I say, that doesn't need to be done as any sort of circuit or anything like that. That was just one of our challenges for the year 3s and 4s. So when they're doing these particular movements, and we have emphasised these movements for this year, and as we move into the next academic year, we'll still be using those and advancing them, like I say, into different activities. But what we're looking for is their posture and sort of their balance. So especially with the nursery reception, some year 1 children, can they balance in these different positions? When they jump for a frog, can they then land softly? And can they control their movement? So it's that confidence to maybe challenge themselves. If they jump higher, how do they land? And it's looking at all our different basic sort of fundamental movements from that. Oh, sorry, let me skip to the next slide. So that sort of fits quite nicely into our PE journey. Apologies, this picture is a little bit blurry, but when we send it out, what I'll do is I'll attach it separately, just so that you can see the sort of the PE learning journey all the way from early years up to year 12 and 13 on our picture that we've made. So from early years, reception, nursery, we look at how to lead a healthy, active lifestyle. There's lots of exploration in terms of balance, climbing, going over, under, around, and looking at different ways of moving. So that's really where we start building their confidence, and we start looking at how they're moving and just which children are confident to try different things and move in different ways. Obviously, at like any age, there'll be children that are really, really confident to experiment with maybe a more challenging way of traveling, whether that's for the younger ones walking on their tippy toes around and along a beam, or whether that's crawling on their hands and knees to get from one side to the other in a gymnastics lesson. I talk about gymnastics a lot because it's a really good activity to help with balance and confidence and these basic skills. But it's definitely not the only activity that's going to develop that physical literacy. But then as they move from year 1 through to year 2 and then 3 and 4, like I've said, we look at specific movements, and then we start building in leadership roles. So a lot of the year 3s and 4s we've looked at something called sports leadership, where they get different jobs. So we'll have an equipment manager, we'll have a warm-up coach, we'll have a skills manager, and maybe even someone like a reporter. So they have a role within the lesson. So they're really, really engaged in that lesson. They know what their job is. And each week, those roles will change within their group, especially at the moment where we've been in pods of 5 and 8, and obviously now down to 2s. It gives them a real responsibility and engages them in that lesson. So what we might do to support our physical literacy and our PE program is get those students that are maybe the reporter or the skills manager to give them some key points. So we might write it on a whiteboard, but to look at how everyone in their group is moving, and then help to then feedback to the class on, okay, what went well, what was successful about your movements, or what was successful about your activity. As a group, have you got a target that maybe you're going to work on for your next lesson? And that target could link to how they move. It could link to a particular tactic or strategy, or it could just link to next time we need to make sure that we're listening to each other, which is often one that comes out a lot, but it's all part of their growth and their learning. So it's a really good way to get in those cross-curricular links with other subjects like English, maths and things like that in our lessons, where they get their whiteboards and they take on that physical activity and using some skills that maybe they also use in their classroom. And then when we move to year 5 and 6, obviously throughout from year 3 upwards, we have our sports captains as well, which is really positive. And then year 5 and 6, we look at, we hope that by then they're able to lead their own warm-ups, some with prompts, which is totally fine. Sometimes we write them on whiteboards. Sometimes students are confident enough to take their group away and say, right, we've got 5 minutes. this is what we're going to do. And then looking at more challenging activities that maybe develop their fitness levels. Fitness was one of our activities that we did take part in this year. And it's one of those that often children sort of see fitness as their next sport, and they're like, oh no, they're going to make us run, they're going to make us do something really horrible for, you know, and stand there like an army sergeant telling us to drop and give us 10 press-ups. And maybe that's an old-fashioned way of thinking about it, or maybe that's sort of a previous experience for some. I mean, maybe some of you have had that sort of experience. But when we look at fitness or cross country or even athletics, yes, we're looking at their fitness levels, but it's teaching them more, how could they improve their fitness levels and what types of, especially year 5 and 6, like energy systems. So how can I improve my cardiovascular breathing and energy system, and how can I improve my endurance? So what could I do? So it's looking at the 12-minute run, or going for a run continuously without stopping, or swimming or cycling. So it's really, it's sort of, in all honesty, tapping in a little bit into what would be in a GCSE criteria. So it's a really challenging concept for some children, but there've been a lot of children this year that have really like grasped that and really tagged onto that and recalled those keywords and shared the definitions and gone out by themselves or spoken to their PE teacher and said, you know, that fitness activity we did where we did a bit of a circuit and we looked at something called plyometrics, where we were jumping on different boxes or over hurdles and we were improving our power. Well, I've gone away and I've tried that, and I've found a real big improvement in my basketball when I've been jumping up to try and defend the ball. And it's making those links and making it really purposeful, but also sharing that extended knowledge of what the keywords are or what the key ideas are within those lessons. And obviously, you know, I'm sure lots of your children take part as well, that we do have an extensive ECA program with PE teachers leading it. We've got sports coaches coming in as an extra sort of aspect to that. And I know there are still a lot of children that take part outside of school or before school activities, which is fantastic. And all of that supports their active lifestyle, supports their physical literacy, supports their movement, and obviously long-term health benefits, mentally, physically, and intellectually. That really supports those sort of aspects of their growth. So it's something definitely that as a team we encourage children to get involved in. We're limited on time in PE. We only get 45 minutes twice a week, so an hour and a half a week with your children to try and get through all of this content and all of this learning, whilst making sure they're moving right, whilst making sure they're developing their confidence. And of course, that's always a challenge, and it's a challenge that we grasp hold of, and you know, we really enjoy having. But this is sort of where that aspect of teachers and parents as a partnership comes in to really build that and make it a really beneficial program. So if you have any questions about sort of like the curriculum or anything that I've spoken about, of course, you can ask them at the end. That's no problem at all. I appreciate sometimes a lot of information. It's hard to remember everything. So just moving on to some guidelines. Again, like I've said, Canada are really at the forefront of physical literacy, of sort of healthy lifestyle guidelines. And what they've developed is they've developed this 4-step guideline. And it looks at their sweat, their step, their sleep, and their sitting time. So what you may have found, or may not, depending on whether your children are younger and in school or are towards the top end of primary and have been at home a lot, is that they are sitting a lot more where they're on their laptop or at their screen. And I mean, personally, if I'm sat on my laptop for a long time, I'm exhausted, and actually getting out is maybe a bit more of a challenge, but it's that encouragement to go out and to do some exercise after. So what the guidelines recommend is they recommend 60 minutes a day. So at least 3 times a week, 60 minutes of activity. And within that activity, there is some that is structured. So for example, that might be going to an organized sports club, or if they're at school, it might be partly their PE lesson where there are those guidelines, the activities are sort of pre-planned for them, but also unstructured play. So they're able to go out and go on the climbing frame at the park, or go on their scooter, or go on their bike, or just go for a walk, or whatever it may be, sometimes just getting lots of equipment out and letting them play and explore, especially if you have children in nursery, reception, year 1, year 2, and just looking at how they move from there. And then the step sort of links into that. It's looking at that structured and unstructured play. And it recommends, I know this is obviously a bit challenging at the moment, but sitting completely sedentary and still for no more than about 2 hours a day. And some of you may be laughing. I mean, even teaching at school, sitting still is a challenge because most children want to move and touch things and go and find out what's going on and explore, which is great. But that sort of sedentary behavior, just sitting still for 2 hours, is the guidelines of a maximum amount of recommended time to just sit and almost do nothing or look at a screen or whatever. And like I say, obviously that's a slight challenge at the moment, but it's being creative with how you can use those pockets of break times between screen time at the moment to get them up, to get them moving. I know one parent shared with me that in between, when they have their breaks, before their kids go for lunch or for a snack, they have to get up, they have to do 10-star jumps. Then they have to, walk up and down the hallway 10 times, and then they can go and have whatever their snack or lunch is, or their downtime, just because they've been sat there for a while. And I thought that was quite nice, just simple, short, snappy things that get them moving, but it's not too onerous and is potentially a bit of a challenge for the children. So the guidelines are quite extensive. Obviously, I'm not going to go through them sort of word for word, but I will share with you at the end on the presentation all the links to any of these guidelines or recommended, or some reading that I've done that I potentially recommend if you want to go and do any extra reading yourselves. There are guidelines that vary from country to country. Generally, the guidelines aim for 60 minutes a day, and how that looks does vary from country to country. So, for example, chief medical officers in the UK, they've made this infographic saying that you need to aim for 60 minutes every day, and it shared the benefits or some ideas of how you can do that as a family, and obviously how we try to do that within school. What I have done, which is a bit of a challenge, feel free to take on or adapt or change or whatever you'd like to do with it. But with your children, the exercises are obviously really important, but it's making it almost purposeful so that they understand how that benefits them and their healthy lifestyle. So what I thought might be quite nice sort of challenge as a family, or I mean, if you've got more than one child, they could do it together, is talk about how it made you feel. So almost like a bit of a journal maybe. So what changes did they maybe notice to their body? How did they feel, or how did you all feel before you went out to do your walk or your bike ride or go to the park? And did you do that and then come back to do some work, and like sort of how that makes you feel and what changes to your body did you notice? With the younger ones, when we warm up, we might start talking to them about, okay, how do you feel now before we've started warming up? Are you hot? Are you cold? Does your body hurt? Can you feel your muscles working? And then as they warmed up, we'll say, okay, what changes have you noticed? How do you feel now? Are you hot? Are you cold? And we sort of go through those same really simple, basic questions, and it gets them to think actually what I've done and how that had an effect on my body. And again, for the older ones, eventually, if any of the children decide to do any further studies in PE, that will link really, really nicely when they look at any options of GCSE or year 7, 8 and 9 PE. So it's a really nice link into that. But that's just a challenge. If you'd like to do it, it might be quite nice. How that looks is obviously completely up to you and how you want to take that on, or if you want to take that on. And as I said, sort of the whole way through, as teachers and parents, we've got to form this this partnership to really help improve the learning and the development and the health of the children, and influence them to lead that healthy lifestyle and to develop that physical literacy throughout their lives. I mean, even as adults, there'll be areas where we're really confident to try something or to move or to get involved in, and there'll be others that maybe not so much. So it's something that you can really engage with as a family, and is something that we really try to work hard on with the children at school. I won't click on this, I'll click on it at the end because it sort of completely blanks my screen for some reason, but I've made a really basic physical activity guide, which has got some ideas of games or ideas that you could try at home or in the park or wherever is suitable. A lot of the reading and the research I've been looking at, and from experience, comes a lot from the WHO recommended guidelines, so the World Health Organization guidelines, and I've put a link to that on this physical activity guide. Again, it's a very, very extensive document that you may wish to completely ignore. But what I've tried to do is pick out some key areas and write down the benefits of those particular activities or exercises for your child at different age groups. So I will show you it very quickly at the end, or fingers crossed. Yeah, we're almost coming to the end now. So I thought it was quite nice because I'm really, really keen to build this partnership. Having come in this year, taking on the role of head of primary PE at Dovercourt, obviously it's been a process of getting to know parents and students, and with the different restrictions and various challenges, I would have liked to have obviously met face-to-face at parent consultations, etc. But I'm really keen to build this partnership and to develop the children's physical activity and their healthy lifestyles. So what I've done, again, you don't have to, there's no obligation to do this, and maybe we could, if many families want to engage with it, we could look at some sort of way of sharing this. But if you're from the UK, you may have heard of this before. There's something that was introduced actually from Edinburgh, I think it's Edinburgh, it was in Scotland, one of the universities, called the Daily Mile. It was a principal at a primary school noticed that the children were not particularly active, and their health and their concentration was taking a really, really big dip. So she came up with this idea of completing a daily mile. Now in school, it's completed as a run or a walk, obviously because of logistics, but it's something that can be completed as a run, walk, cycle, scooter, swim, whatever you enjoy really. And there's been some real, I'm not sure entirely, don't quote me on how long it's been going on for, but it's been going on for probably at least 5-6 years, maybe a little bit more. And it's had some really, really positive outcomes and benefits. And I've added a QR code, which, so the Daily Mile organisers have created a leaflet which has explained the benefits of just doing 1 mile every day at any time in the day, and the benefits that's had on those primary school children. So feel free to scan that code now or later on and have a look. But that's my challenge, maybe over the summer, or you can start now, for families and for children. And I think it's something that I'm going to try and do myself as well. And then finally, with many families being in Singapore this summer, what I thought was quite nice would be, I've created something called a Padlet. It's like post-it notes on the screen, with ideas of how you stay active as a family. Maybe it could be places that you go to stay active. It could be, I appreciate that maybe sports clubs aren't running at the moment, but even adding things like my child takes part in netball and giving the netball sort of club's name and things like that, so that parents can go on, and if you need an activity in the summer and you're not really sure, or you've done the same thing a few times, and finding a new way to keep active with your children. It would be really great if you add some ideas. Again, that's something you can do now or later, or just have a look at what other people come up with. But hopefully it becomes quite a useful sort of, I don't know what to call it, document, I suppose, where people can click on and off of it as and when, and we can download it to share on your parent platform as well, if we want to. That's everything from me. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast, and hopefully that's been quite useful. If you do have any questions, then feel free to ask. I will share everything with Sophia and the marketing team, so it can go onto your parent platform, so you can have a look through at your own pace as well if you want to. But thank you very much.
Just had a question, Katie, before you finish. You know the book that you were referring to quite near the beginning?
Yeah.
That was talking about bits of exercise on knowledge retention.
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the name of the book?
Yeah, it's by Dr. John Ratey, so Ratey, and it's called How Exercise Will Improve the Performance of Your Brain. It might come up with the name Spark, S-P-A-R-K. But you should, I mean, I ordered my copy here from, is it Takashimaya Bookshop? So you should be able to access it quite easily.
Great, thank you.
Right.
There's no other questions in the chat. Just that one family mentioned that they had started doing the run streak, following the American World Run Streak, which probably sounds a little bit like your the mile that you
great. Things like that, add them to the Padlet as well, because I haven't heard of the Run Streak, which sounds awesome. But add them on, and you know, maybe we can get a few more families involved in that. That sounds really, really great. But if anyone thinks of any questions after, you know, later on in the day, then please do email me. I'll respond as quickly as I can. But at any point, you're welcome to contact me with any questions, or just to share anything. I love hearing when the children are active and what they're up to as well. So yeah, please feel free to get in touch.
Great, thanks, Katie. Well, we'll be sending out, or we will make available, the recording of the webinar and the slides as well. So they will be made available on the parent portal. It will probably be up there by Monday. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.